first and foremost want to say hi, want to say welcome. I live in Colorado, but actually in this very moment, I'm in Portland, Oregon. I'm particularly grateful to be here today, I think, because of everything that has been happening in the world and then particularly in the US in the last weeks. And I recognize that we're coming together at a time where we're holding a lot of heartache, confusion, loss, pain. And my hope is that in coming together today and in the coming weeks, that we can really welcome ourselves as fully as we're able and to take some moments of space and respite to allow our bodies, our nervous systems, our hearts, and really our whole selves to remember into our capacity to heal and connect. We certainly need these moments of respite. So I want to just share a little bit about this series and kind of the why behind it before we dive into our practice for the day, because I do think that's important context. We live in a really complicated world, and one of the ways that we move through complicated spaces is we try to make sense of ourselves and other people and all of the things around us by doing things like sorting, labeling, trying to find, quote unquote, absolute truths. We are raised in, socialized in cultures and families of origin that use some of what we're going to focus on, which is binaries, binaries being ways that are often intended to help guide and inform us, but ultimately they can also be incredibly limiting and they can cause confusion and harm, which we'll talk a little bit about and then do some practices around. So let's take a minute and just talk about what we mean by binaries. And if you have thoughts about this and kind of your understanding of that, feel free to throw that into the chat as well. But again, this is one of the many ways that we attempt to sort and understand and make sense of things, right? And so you could think of binaries as sometimes it's like opposing words or definitions or labels. So good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, us, them, female, male, et cetera, et cetera. You kind of get the gist there. And again, there can be some real helpfulness to having these binary constructs and labels, but ultimately they are incredibly limiting. They give us kind of an A or B option, right? It's this or that, as you see in the title of this series. And so one of the things that I love in my approach to thinking about liberation work and to collective liberation is that stepping outside of these binary constructs can free us. They can help us feel and see into gradients, into fluidity, into expansiveness, into spaciousness. And, ultimately, when we kind of live and speak and exist in binaries, that limitation can lead us into these both internal and external and relational experiences of conflict, of confusion. Sometimes they can make us feel trapped, unsafe, or even unseen. And so when we engage in this kind of sorting and labeling of ourselves, of others, of our experiences, again, we think about things like good or bad, enough or not enough, feminine, masculine, insider, outsider. Binaries really can be used to both empower and to disempower, to make ourselves feel worthy or unworthy, or to make others feel that way. So another thing that's important is that when we experience stress, when we experience trauma, when we are overwhelmed, binaries and this either or this or that thinking can become even more entrenched because we're trying to make sense of our experience. We're trying to give it words. Sometimes those are our experiences, right? We may have had caregivers, for example, that told us we were this or that, we were good or bad. There can be this kind of constriction or limitation, or maybe a narrowing of our ability or our capacity to see ourselves and one another in our fullness, in the spectrum of our fullness. And that constriction can show up in our thinking, in our bodies, in our movement, in our identities, all kinds of ways. And so really my hope is that in our time together in these weeks, we can step into some more spaciousness and fluidity and find some freedom in the expansiveness outside of the this or that we've been talking about. So let's feel into some of the beauty of this, right? The ragged edges of ourselves are part of our beauty. The ways that we move and have fluidity in our identity and our experiences in any given moment and throughout our lives is part of what makes us so dang beautiful and amazing. So we're going to spend some time feeling into our expansiveness, try to feel into how connected we can be across the spectrum of ourselves. And so hopefully in that to feel more connected to one another as well. So we're going to engage in these 5 weeks together in a variety of different embodiment practices as a way to step into the questions that are bigger than this or that, right? It's the way that this or that shows up, but we're going to feel into the spaces in between and beyond those things. These practices by no means are a means to try to find an answer that's kind of like the period or the end of an inquiry. It's really a way to just engage in the asking of the questions and to keep our minds and our bodies and our hearts as open as we can to the idea that there could be this whole spectrum of options available to us in any given moment as we seek to explore and make meaning out of ourselves and out of our experiences. We'll do a little exploration in these practices too of the different stories that we inherit from our cultures of origin and our families of origin, but we'll do that by means of exploring how these things live in our bodies, how we experience both expansiveness and constriction or contraction. We'll explore how these stories show up through sensation, through emotions, through thoughts and beliefs. We'll use some expressive art later in our time together, not today, but that'll come in a few weeks. So hopefully lots of fun things to come. But today, let's talk a little bit about the practice for today. So we are going to do a yoga nidra practice today, a shorter one, which is, if you're new to the practice, is a lovely way to start. And we're gonna explore this practice that for me is very near and dear to my heart because it has given me such transformative and, I will say, challenging experiences, which both have been really valuable and important. If you're not familiar with Yoga Nidra or I Rest Yoga Nidra, as you see in the description, it's an ancient meditation practice that can be incredibly healing. And the Sanskrit Yoga Nidra loosely translates to yogic sleep. And it describes this deeper state of relaxation. At the same time that we experience deeper relaxation, we also can experience this kind of full expansive consciousness, which is one of the things that I find to be totally rad about this practice. One of the ways that I think about it is if you've ever experienced falling asleep in front of the TV and you can still hear the TV, but you're not totally conscious about everything that's going on, or let's say you're riding a passenger in a car and you fall asleep in the car and you're still kind of hearing and taking in some of that experience, but you're resting. That's one way to think about it. So I Rest, which is short for integrative restoration, is a modern variation of this ancient practice. There's a lot of wonderful research that you can check out if you're interested that the Integrative Restoration Institute has produced, looking at its effectiveness in improving symptoms of PTSD, insomnia, chronic pain, anxiety, depression, chemical dependence, things of that sort. Today's practice in particular is really going to focus in on how do we welcome and explore opposites within our sensory experience, within our bodies, and using that as a means to explore the ways that these kind of binaries or this or that structures live in our experience and in our bodies. In the coming weeks, we'll then expand the practice out to explore emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and other things. So I'll give you a couple little more kind of upfront tidbits, if you will, about the practice and what to expect, and then we'll drop in together. One of the things that I love about Yoga Nidra is this idea of welcoming, and to welcoming all parts of our experience, maybe even the ones that aren't so pleasant, and doing that with some curiosity. And one way that I think about it is it's kind of like the practice of like hearing it. Let's say you hear a knock at the door and you go to open the door and there's some of your not so favorite people standing in front of you, waiting to be let in. Let's say maybe some family members, something like that. And they're very unexpectedly there. They've got some literal and maybe some figurative baggage to tell. And more often than not, in that situation, our immediate reaction is to have thoughts of wanting the situation to go away. I don't want this to be true. I don't want this to be happening. I want this to end. We have experiences of dread, maybe anxiety, anger, frustration, things of that sort. And just thinking about that happening, like I can notice some things show up in my body. There's some constriction. Now, let's hit rewind for a second. Imagining a different scenario. It's the same knock. It's the same people with the same baggage. But this time, our response is one of a welcoming, despite knowing that, look, this isn't ideal. I'm going to be spending some time with some of my not so favorite folks, perhaps, but I'm just going to welcome this experience. I'm going to be as hospitable as I can, as receptive and curious about their arrival and about my reaction to the experience as I can be. Even as I say that, I notice there's not a whole softening, but there's a little bit of a softening in my body, in my nervous system. So that is the practice of welcoming, that even the things that knock at the door, such as sensations, emotions, that they're all messengers, right? They're all those knocks at the door. And oftentimes, excuse me, when we encounter sensations or emotions that are scary or unpleasant, perhaps, excuse me, our immediate reaction is to want to retreat, to pull back. So what I'll note is that a part of this practice is going to be guiding us through welcoming all of the messengers that arise in the different shapes that they take: emotions, sensations, thoughts, beliefs, without the desire in that moment to change anything, without the desire for something to go away, but rather to just stay in that space of curiosity and openness to all parts of your experience. So that being said, let's go ahead and get settled. So getting settled can look a few different ways. I really like to encourage people to be as comfortable as possible when you do a yoga nidra practice. So if that's lying down for you, I'd really encourage you to get comfortable. You can lie down on whatever surface is available to you. You can get a pillow, pillows, blankets, get as comfortable as you would like. If that's not an option for you, or if that's not comfortable for you, just to find a comfortable seat is totally fine. Really giving yourself full permission to get as comfortable as you can. So I'll give you a moment to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and get organized and get settled. I'm also going to make note that all of what I'm offering today is an invitation. So you'll hear me use invitational language throughout, but even in moments when I don't make an explicit invitation, you can treat everything as an invitation. I want, all of us to feel full permission to only do what feels right for us in any given moment, and that can change moment to moment. So for now, as you settle in, if it feels right for you, I'll invite you to go ahead and let either your gaze soften or your eyes to fully close, and to notice feeling supported by whatever surface your body is resting on. Settling into a position that feels just right, or as close to just right as is available to you in this moment. And throughout the practice today, I'm going to gently guide you to notice and feel physical sensations, to maybe notice the breath, emotions or thoughts, things that come up, and to really experience yourself as the witness to all of these comings and goings, to noticing how things come and go within your experience, within your awareness. So for now, just simply allowing yourself to rest at ease and to follow my guidance in whatever ways work for you moment to moment, allowing my voice to gently guide you. And I'll invite you now to bring attention to your senses, noticing the taste in your mouth, noticing the sounds around you, any smells, perhaps any images, shapes, or colors that show up behind your eyelids. The sensation of air on your skin, or where your clothing or your blanket or anything touches your skin. All of your senses open, alive, receptive, holding the stance of curiosity. I'm now going to invite you to explore a bit of what an inner resource may be for you. And an inner resource can be any number of things. It may be a special place that when you bring it to mind, allows you to feel secure, grounded, or at ease. Perhaps this is a room or a place in nature, maybe an image of a favorite or meaningful symbol, could be an animal, anything that feels right for you. And whatever your inner resource is, allowing yourself to imagine it using all of your senses. So using your sense of sound, of smell, noticing colors, shapes, and noticing any possible feelings of security or groundedness, ease, or well-being that may come up as you connect with this image of your inner resource. And noticing where in your body perhaps you may be feeling any pleasant or even neutral sensations. Knowing too that you can return to this inner resource, to this place of well-being at any time during your practice if you would like to or need to, or any time during your daily life, whenever you feel the need or desire to feel some more ease or calm or security, that this is yours. I'll also extend an invitation for you now to bring to mind perhaps an intention for your practice today. Perhaps that's how you'd like to feel during or as a result of your practice. Perhaps it's a sense of inner peace or well-being or respite, maybe some relief from some physical discomfort or emotional pain. It may be as simple as just to remain alert and engaged to whatever capacity is available to you today during your practice. Whatever it is, allowing your intention to emerge fully, feeling into your intention as an ally or as an accomplice in your practice, supporting you to be engaged and present and curious throughout your practice. Noticing as you do this, how you experience this in your entire body and mind. I'll invite you to bring your awareness along with a sense of welcoming curiosity to your physical body. Making note of physical sensations that may be present. Allowing your attention to wander throughout your body. From the crown of your head, through your face and neck and shoulders. Your arms, chest and torso, hips, legs and feet, simply allowing this curious mind and awareness to wander throughout your body. Notice how you are feeling and experiencing yourself as the one who's aware of sensations in your body. You hold the ability and capacity to observe your own experience, to make note of sensations in your body. Noticing how sensations come and go and change. Remembering again at any time that you may need or want to experience the need to feel secure and ease, you can return to your inner resource at a moment's notice. I'll invite you now to bring attention to any sensation within your body that is maybe particularly calling for your attention in this moment. Perhaps it's a sensation of heaviness or lightness, warmth or coolness, comfort or discomfort. And as your attention is kind of magnetized or pulled to whatever sensation feels most present or calling to you in this moment, allow yourself to become aware of all the qualities of the sensation, where in your body you experience it. Does it change or evolve as you bring your attention to it? Does it stay the same? Does it get quieter, louder? Allow yourself to fully explore the qualities of this sensation. When you're ready, and if it's helpful, I'll invite you to explore what the opposite of this sensation may be. So if you were experiencing heaviness, perhaps lightness, if coolness, perhaps warmth, if discomfort, perhaps comfort, and go ahead and welcome this opposite sensation or feeling fully into your body, fully into your awareness, allowing the original sensation to fade into the background, becoming fully connected with and attuned to this opposite sensation now in your body. And then allow it to emerge fully, getting curious about the qualities of this opposite sensation, where it shows up in your body, how you experience it. You may notice things that come up within your experience, perhaps reactions to the sensation, feelings or thoughts, images. Welcoming everything as a messenger within your experience. Now, I'll invite you to bring both of these opposite sensations within your body at the same time, without thinking, simply experiencing how doing this affects your body, your mind, holding both sensations, these opposite sensations in your body, in your awareness and experience simultaneously. Allowing yourself to be aware of all that is now present within your awareness, within your consciousness. Feeling into yourself as the one who is aware of everything that's now present, sensing what's present, experiencing yourself as the one who is aware of these things that are arising and changing, growing and shrinking, and falling away within your experience. And allowing all of this to fade into the background. Allowing any sensations throughout your body that may feel pleasurable or joyful or neutral or calm. Welcoming whatever is accessible, whatever may emerge in this moment. Perhaps even sensing into a sense of feeling of warmth radiating from your heart. And with each breath, expanding out more and more throughout your body till it reaches every part of your body. Feeling into yourself as this person, this being who is able to feel into a sense of being okay just as you are. Everything just as it is. And then I'll invite you to imagine what it might be like to go about your daily life, noticing sensations as they arise, even when they are difficult. Noticing how They can show up and consume us at times. And how we can remember and feel into ourselves as this unchanging, spacious awareness that is the holder and observer of our experience, everything coming and going within our awareness. And for today, our short practice is coming to a close. So I'll invite you now to take whatever time you need or want to transition to a more alert and awake state, sensing your body, sensing the room around you, eyes opening if they're closed as you feel ready, perhaps finding a little wiggle or movement in your fingers, your toes, or a little movement or wiggle in your body, maybe turning your head or neck from side to side and orienting to the space around you, reorienting to where you are. And as we close our practice for today, I just want to acknowledge a feeling of gratitude that I have to each of you for taking this time, one, to hang out with me and with each other, but also to honor yourself by giving yourself even a short little space to engage in a practice or even just to listen along. If that's what felt right for you today. And knowing that you are so wonderful for being here, for taking this time and honoring yourself. And so, as you hopefully maybe felt into, we can explore the ways that this or that or binaries or opposites show up in our bodies, using our bodies today as the source of that exploration. And we'll explore more through our emotional landscape. We'll have a slightly longer practice over the next couple of weeks. We won't need quite as much of an introduction, so we'll be able to dive in a little more deeply. And I'm aware of the time, Mary, so I'll just check in too to see if there are any questions or comments, observations, anything at all. I'd be so happy.
Well, I have to say, I thought that was a very cool practice. I started feeling tired. My first sensation was sort of tired and heavy. And then my second sensation was actually, there was an energy and an excitement. And it was really such a cool thing to recognize that there were both happening simultaneously. And I could feel them in different parts of my body.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. Roshan says, I felt really overwhelmed when you talked about reaching for my inner safety or a place that I felt safe. I couldn't find one.
Yeah, that is such a wonderful point. I'm glad to see that. One of the things that I talk about when I guide this practice, and there's maybe a little more time and space, is that is such a normal experience, right? Particularly when we have experienced a lot of maybe scary or traumatic things in our lives. It can be a really difficult thing to access that. And so what I have done with people is explore something maybe outside of yourself that you can connect with. So I'll share with you that my inner resource oftentimes is my dog's fur. It's just this, because I'm really able to connect with the sensory experience that I have when I pet him and what that does for me and my nervous system and my body. It can be something as simple as something in the space, like if there's a pillow or a blanket that you really like the texture, that resource can be something that you can access with your sensory experience. It doesn't have to be this place. If it feels hard to find that inside, we can use our external experience to try and connect with someone. And sometimes it's hard. That's, one of the things that's tricky with these practices is that we don't always know what's going to show up. Sometimes we're going to drop in and have this really lovely experience. And sometimes we have really tough stuff come up, and that's part of that welcoming, is allowing those messengers to arrive with some curiosity. And then we can figure out how then to use that as information as we move forward, right? It doesn't mean, so here's the irony, right? Sometimes when we do a practice like this, we feel like, oh, I did a good job, or I did a bad job, or I did that right, or I did that wrong. And I'll say, you did everything wonderfully. No matter what happened, your practice was what it was, and it was what it needed to be today and in this moment. And so I so appreciate your question. I hope that answered. If it didn't, feel free to throw more in the chat, but I really appreciate you bringing it up, because I am absolutely sure you're not alone in that.
Yeah. Cheryl says that she holds a soft pillow every night, and that's really useful.
Mhm.
I'm just going to take one or two more comments, and I want to share that Emily said she felt both supported by the couch and held heavy and held down. It was a great
Mhm.
chance to observe both at the same time and just be curious about them.
Yeah.
Um, and Sean is saying, if you start to feel anxious, fear when you notice the inner body sensation,
Mm.
what are any suggestions for that with the
Mhm.
to handle that anxiety?
Yeah, it's a good question. So part of what's helpful about the opposites piece of the yoga nidra practice is that you can shift your attention into something opposite very intentionally, or you could use something to access some of that. Because part of what happens when we move out of the kind of constriction, when we attach to one side of a binary or this and that, is that we forget that everything else exists oftentimes. Like if pain shows up or if anxiety shows up, that we become kind of absorbed or blended with that part of our experience. And so our building kind of the muscle, if you will, or accessing another part of our experience can help our nervous systems and our awareness remember to zoom out a little bit and see like there's actually multiple things happening within my experience right now. So sometimes I'll tell people, even if it's like, you know what, if your big toe feels okay in that moment, then you could just connect with your big toe and say, that's a part of my body where I'm not experiencing anxiety or I'm not experiencing pain. And you might just get really curious about what you're experiencing in your big toe, and that can be a part of that. And maybe it seems like a silly example, but that could be it. That could really be it. And so that's what I find to be a beautiful part of the practice, is that it helps us remember that there is more happening within our experience than perhaps the one thing that feels really consuming or overwhelming or hard in any given moment. I hope that's helpful. If not, of course, you can feel free to throw more in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. That is helpful. This was really great, Mariah. It was very different. It was very different feeling these opposites. Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
this session was called Moving Beyond This or That in Our Bodies. And next week's session is called Moving Beyond This or That in Our Hearts. Mariah, would you like to tell us anything we might need to know about next week's session?
Sure. Yeah. So we're going to do a slightly longer practice. Pieces of it will feel very, very familiar and similar from today. And we're going to explore this kind of this or that, or the experience of opposites in regards to our emotional landscape, our inner landscape as it connects to our heart and our feelings. Next week, that's what we'll explore. So yeah. So come ready to get comfortable again, I guess is what I can prompt you to do.
That's great. That's great. Well, we'll see everyone next week, same time. Thank you so much, Mariah. We look forward to the next few sessions.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.